into the United States of America? What was going through your mind in the actual moments?
Well, I was very uncertain of my future. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I was hoping that I would get a scholarship. That's what I was hoping to. But it never happened. You know, I was hoping that I could, I was glad that my family took me in, because I have other friends that they had gone to orphanages, and that will really affect them for life, because it was they were taking good care with their parents, and then all of a sudden they were put in places where with troubled kids, and in some cases they were separated, you know, like brothers and sisters. They were separated in different areas. So I have this book called Operation Peter Pan that I read, so I know a lot of what some children went through. Some of them were happy. They got adjusted very well to the American families, and when their parents came from Cuba, it had passed 4 or 5 years, and they had to reacquaint themselves. Some of the kids came when they were 6 years old, so they didn't know. Is this the end? So they didn't know. They were young. They didn't remember their parents. So it was very traumatic. And I recommend, if you want to learn more about what happened to these other children, to read this book. And it's by Yvonne Conde, Operation Pedro Pan. And some of the people, this is interesting, that helped us get out of Cuba ended up in jail 25 years, because when the revolution, Castro found out that this was happening, they put them in jail. And I particularly know my husband's aunt. She was the cousin of one of the presidents of Grau, Paula Grau, and her brother Ramon, and they ended up like 25 years in jail. And their children were here with the family was separated. The father took the children out, and the mother was put in jail. So they sacrificed their lives for us, for getting us out of Cuba.
What does that mean to you, that somebody actually sacrificed their life for you?
Well, it means a lot. It means a lot, because they had a lot of patriotism. They were fighting something, a regime that was not right, and they were willing to go to jail, to give their lives to get these children out. And some of these children are very famous now. You know, some of these Peter Pan children, I don't know if you know some of them, but Mel Martinez is one of them. Gloria Estefan is one of Peter Pan's children. And in fact, I was reading that she was in an orphanage, Gloria Estefan. And so there were a lot of children that they move ahead. There were others that were traumatized. There were others that this traumatized them further. There were some of them that killed themselves. So there were all kinds of stories, some success stories and some not so successful, sad stories.
Okay. If there was one thing that you could say to your family, well, not so much your family back in Cuba, but to the people in Cuba, of Cuba, what would that be?
What I would say is that that right now I know there is a lot of they have committees of defense that they're looking over them. Everything they do, they're being watched. They cannot go to the streets and protest for their liberties or for democracy. I cannot tell them to go out because and fight for their freedom because they're going to end up in jail. But so it's a very difficult situation because here we say, why don't they go out on the streets and protest? But they are so oppressed. That's the word. You know that by doing that, they're going to jeopardize their family, the food. They control the food that they're gonna. So they kind of. The Cuba is a big prison. So I wish they could do something. Maybe the government, the people in the government, the ones that can do something, or the military, to revolt and fight against the Castro brothers. That's what I would say to the people that have the power. Either that, or try to loosen up like they're trying to do here now. They're trying to reestablish relations with Cuba and give the Cubans some freedom.
One more question. As of now, do you see yourself visiting Cuba? Have you?
I went to visit Cuba 20 years ago when they first opened for 20 years we couldn't go back, even if we wanted to. But I had my grandmother still in Cuba, so I went and visited her. My father had already died, and I went to a town called Camagüey, and it was very sad because everything there was run down, and I was watched all the time by the Committee of Defense, and so I couldn't move freely. You know, I was always being watched. And my grandmother was in her 90s and she was sick, and even she lived in a house with her sisters, and there was only one left. There were originally five sisters and brothers. They have all died, and but I spent a week with her, and she still knew that I was there, but I wanted her to know that we cared about her, even though we couldn't, because she didn't want to come out at the time. She didn't want to leave Cuba because she thought she was too old to leave Cuba. So,
Faculty, staff, and students, please pardon this interruption. However, it's now time to call down for all seniors in compliance at being in school uniform and with student IDs, all seniors, regardless of alpha, to report to the auditorium for the